So, fellas, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Overton window has shifted so far left that we are now in the inevitable swing back to the right. Nick Fuentes is gaining more momentum than he's ever had. How much momentum is he gaining? Let me show you.
Because it speaks about the pervasiveness, effectiveness, the acceptance of Nick Fuentes with young men. Because I'm not the only one that's pointing out like, hey man, the young men that I mentor, involve myself with, just talk with, they're all reacting to Nick Fuentes. They all have some sort of attraction to Nick Fuentes and his message. And we can't keep ignoring this and thinking, we're gonna just hold another conference somewhere and some group meeting and it's all gonna go away. It's not. He's resonating with young people, including young black men. Let's play SOT number 5.
There's gotta be one real nigga. Can the real please stand up? There has to be one real left in America, in this damn country. Are there any real niggas left that actually got censored and banned on YouTube? Where's the real niggas?
For real, he's undeniably stayed true to his points and
he's
unwavered since the day that I first even discovered him. And I think the more and more I listen to him and the more and more I grow and mature as a man, I think he's right. He just makes a lot of points. Now, do I agree with everything he says? No, but that's naturally. I'm not a person that agrees with everyone, but I think a lot of what he says is undeniably the truth.
He's winning.
You're going back in chains. I'm kidding, of course. I don't even particularly mind Jason Whitlock, but I don't care. If that was Thomas Sowell's face, I'd be laughing. A black face making that face after what he just watched. Look at his eyes. Welcome to the club, buddy. I've been making that face my whole life. My turn to laugh. It's not your word anymore. Oh my god, I'm actually crying. That was actually cathartic. That felt really good. Now, a huge influence on Nick's politics is the paleoconservatism popularized by Pat Buchanan. Here was Pat Buchanan's political ad from the year 2000.
An executive order saying that English is no longer America's national language. It's Executive Order 13136.
Thank you for calling 911. Please listen for your language. For Spanish, press 1. For Korean, press 2.
Do you ever miss English? Immigration is out of control. Bush and Gore are writing off English for good. What can you do? Vote for the third party that puts Americans first. Vote Buchanan for president.
For Swahili, press 12.
So that ad really hits home with me because currently in Boston public schools, students speak over 70 different languages, hailing from 141 different countries. Just a short 25 years later. You see, in my America that didn't listen to Pat Buchanan, when I go to Starbucks, I get to wait in line behind a Ugandan that speaks 10% English, try to order a quad blonde ristretto shot extra dry cappuccino to a barista that's Indian and speaks 20% English off of a menu that's in half Italian. Okay, it's so fun. But of course it's racist to raise this issue that you can't understand what anyone's fucking saying. So it breeds a little bit of resentment. Which brings us to Nick Fuentes. But first, what's paleoconservatism? Paleoconservatism is a political philosophy and a strain of conservatism in the United States stressing American nationalism, Christian ethics, traditional conservatism, and non-interventionism. There's overlap with opposing the New Deal from the 30s and 40s, and in the past few decades, they've started to focus on issues of race. Understandably so if you want to have a national identity, and you've been fighting off commie infiltration, making you feel guilty and racist for being... Isn't that weird how they try to make you feel racist for being a nationalist? They immediately tie it to being white. The whole thing's anti-white. And if you're anti-interventionist, you're inevitably going to be critical of Israel, okay? Pat Buchanan was more for smaller government. Nick Fuentes is for larger government. So it's, not a carbon copy. Let's use our brains, fellas. It's not the exact same. Heavily influenced. He hits on a lot of key points that we're not even allowed to talk about. And the crazy thing is, this guy was on mainstream television. He was on CNN.
Welcome back. The issue: is a voluntary prayer at a public school graduation a violation of the First Amendment?
So I desperately need you to realize the political positions of Nick Fuentes are not nearly as verboten as they want you to think they were a generation ago. We're starting to see how much of the outrage against Nick Fuentes has been completely manufactured. Let's hear how Tucker Carlson talked about Pat Buchanan, and then how he talked about Nick Fuentes.
I mean, this is part of the sad thing about Pat Buchanan, as far as I'm concerned. The sad thing is, and I know that no one who watches him will believe me, Pat does raise issues that I think are important. Doesn't mean everything he says is false. It doesn't mean he's not talented. He's enormously talented. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. I'm not attacking him personally. I mean, I think that, the sovereignty of the American military, et cetera, I mean, these are not just crank issues. It's young white men who've been totally cut out of our economy, attacked mercilessly. I mean, they really are the victims, and they're desperate, and no one speaks for them. So they go to Fuentes because he's incredibly articulate, and they think he's our leader. But unfortunately, Pat Buchanan raises them in a way that I think is discredited. But he is clearly part of a campaign to discredit non-crazy right voices. Pat Buchanan is part of the reason it's so hard to have that conversation, because he discredits it by his presence. That's a campaign to destroy credible voices on the right. And Fuentes is part of it. And that he believes in conspiracies, and that he believes that the Jews are this sinister, secretly organized force trying to affect American politics. And those aren't discussions I think normal people, sober people should be having. Anyway, who is this kid exactly? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just an accident that the guy exclusively goes after people who are in roughly the same. And then he gets up there and he's making Holocaust jokes. When attacked, he can always fall back on the line, well, the tiny cabal that controls American politics doesn't like me because I speak truth to power. This is actually, incidentally, almost verbatim what he said the other day, that I offend the plutocracy, that I'm a wanted man by the inside the Beltway people, and in every sense cast himself as a victim who is sort of a Karen Silkwood of politics, someone who's so truthful that he's being hunted down by the conspiracy that runs Washington. I mean, it's all a bit much.
It's poetry. It's absolute poetry. History's just repeating itself on a loop. We had such a shift to the left where now the Nick Fuentes position is all of a sudden hands off, can't talk to him, so you can't stop him from talking, unfortunately, like in other countries. So let's hear him talk about his really contentious opinions.
You may have heard Jewish supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
They call themselves the chosen people. They think they're better than everybody. And if you if you dig into their religion, Kabbalah and the Talmud, it says that their lives are worth more than ours. It says that the penalty...
That's what their Bible says.
That's right, the Talmud. If you go into their holy book, the Talmud is basically rabbis' commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the 613 commandments from the Jewish Bible. So there's 10 commandments, but there's others throughout the Old Testament. The Jews extracted those, put them in a book, and then they've debated about how to interpret and apply those for 2,000 years. In the Talmud, it says things like, you can lie to Gentiles, which are non-Jews. Different business practices apply. You can't give Gentiles gifts, but you can give them gifts if it's to ingratiate yourself with them in a business relationship.
So that's what
it says.
That's where that stereotype comes from Jews, because it's in their Bible.
It's in the book.
What do you call it? So that's not a stereotype. That's their religion.
It's black and white.
Man, that is crazy as fuck. That is insane.
So apparently it's anti-Semitic when Nick says it. Is it anti-Semitic when Google says it? Giving gifts to Gentiles in a business context according to Talmudic interpretations. While the Talmud generally prohibits giving free gifts to Gentiles as a form of favoring that could lead to overly close social relations or assimilation, it allows for certain exceptions, particularly within a business context. Here's a breakdown of the permissibility of gift giving to Gentiles in business. according to Talmudic interpretations. Gifts within a business relationship are permitted. Giving gifts to a Gentile with whom one has a business relationship is permitted, especially if it's considered a payment of sorts. They have finances built into their religion. A payment of sorts for services rendered for an incentive for future work, according to Torah.org. Oh boy, put on your helmets, fellas. Things are about to get pretty tarded. Gifts with ulterior motive. Google. Stop. Giving a gift for a strategic or practical purpose, like fostering goodwill or maintaining peaceful relations, is also permissible. This applies to situations such as giving gifts to maintain a peaceful environment and tipping a taxi driver. Gifts in anticipation of reciprocity. If one has a relationship with a Gentile and anticipates receiving something in return, even a gesture of thanks, giving a gift is permitted because it's viewed as a form of transaction rather than a gratuitous act. Oh no. In their Bible, you cannot just give to a Gentile gratuitously. It has to be to gain something, according to their Bible. Google, stop. And of course, showing appreciation for past favors. Honoring a Gentile for past favors, benefiting the Jewish community is permissible. It seems a little insular and like it's in their Bible to not assimilate. So let's get a recap. In essence, while Judaism emphasizes the importance of a distinct Jewish identity and avoiding assimilation, it also recognizes the need for positive and ethical interactions with the wider community. When gift-giving to a Gentile serves a legitimate business purpose or promotes positive relations without compromising Jewish values, it is generally considered permissible under Talmudic law. What Nick Fuentes just said is not only true, it has been true for over 1,000 years. And if you're having a revulsion to what you're hearing, understand why dozens of expulsions have happened throughout history. Now, is everything Nick Fuentes says true? Of course not. Can he be misleading and spread disinformation? Absolutely. But who are we comparing him to? In the space he's in? Who doesn't also do that? I'm not out here grading right-wingers on a curve for ethical practices in the midst of a spiritual battle. Be as skeptical of him all you want. Be as critical of him all you want. Also, join his cult and believe everything he says. I ain't your daddy, motherfucker. Freedom of association. But if I catch you denying basic truths he says, I'll chew your fucking ass out. But let's take a break and go back to a simpler time. Let me give you a compilation of what Pat Buchanan used to be allowed to say in public, and just listen to the crowd.
My friends, like many of you, last month I watched that giant masquerade ball up at Madison Square Garden, where 20,000 liberals and radicals came dressed up as moderates and centrists in the greatest single exhibition of cross-dressing in American political history. You know, one by one, the American people are not going to go back to the discredited liberalism of the 1960s and the failed liberalism of the 1970s, no matter how slick the package in 1992. Oh. Hold it, my friends. America's great middle class has got to start standing up to these environmental extremists who put birds and rats and insects ahead of families, workers, and jobs. Yet a militant leader of the homosexual rights movement could rise at that same convention and say, Bill Clinton and Al Gore represent the most pro-lesbian and pro-gay ticket in history, and so they do.
Do you really wonder why the left has invested so much time, treasure, and talent into infiltrating our most powerful institutions? Because that's the level of effort it takes to coerce millions of people into shunning Jesus Christ and coercing them into unnatural political positions. Nick and Pat just want to debate and have conversations with good faith interlocutors. But this process of shunning debate and labeling dissidents with epithets started well before the time of Nick Fuentes.
I think debate is good for the Republican Party. Bob, our party 10 years ago was the party of ideas. We debated them with liberals, we debated them among conservatives, whether you liked them or not, SDI, supply side economics, the Reagan doctrine. We now have a hidebound administration that not only won't debate Pat Buchanan personally, they will not debate issues and ideas with me. There's just a lot of epithets when the surrogates come up here in New Hampshire.
A lot of conclusions people on the right come to are in fact reactionary. You're supposed to have a reaction to people refusing to engage with your ideas and just calling you racist and anti-Semitic. What then happens on a person's right-wing journey, like with Pat Buchanan, is being told less white people is a good thing.
Your book has a chapter called The End of White America,
right?
Which it's a startling term, and I'm curious what you mean, because isn't the end of white America, as we see the rise of Hispanics, a good thing? Proof that America is a melting pot, that anybody can succeed here, no matter the color of your skin or your religion or whatever.
Well, that's I'm a little concerned when people say, Pat, you know, the majority of people looking like you, that's coming to an end, Pat. So let me say this. What's wrong with this is the idea that when whites are a minority in this country in 2041 and Hispanics are 150 million, what is going to hold us together when we don't have a common religion, we don't have common beliefs about right and wrong and morality as we used to? We are at war over you know, whether or not equality means equality of rights or equality of rewards.
The American dream, the freedom, the belief, what caused the Arab Spring, that's what holds us together.
Most white people grow up in a world dominated by leftist rhetoric about viewing race as oppressor versus oppressed, inherently. We then start to notice that other groups, like the black community, gay community, are all allowed to advocate as a collective. It seems like all groups are allowed to unify under a collective except for white people. Nick Fuentes noticed this early on. Here's a clip from when he was only 19 years old, highlighting why he doesn't call himself a white nationalist. Because any descriptor of a white identity, the left immediately turns into a pejorative epithet.
You know, the reason I wouldn't call myself a white nationalist, it's not because I don't see the necessity for white people to have a homeland and for white people to have a country. It's because I think that kind of terminology is used almost exclusively by the left to defame. And I think the terminology and the labels that we use, I don't think we can look at them outside of the context of their connotations in America. Whereas maybe it might be descriptive to call somebody a white nationalist. I think it sort of loses something when an average person hears that and it's almost synonymous with Nazi or villain or whatever. And so I would say I'm a white person. I'm conscious of my white identity, conscious of nationalism. But I think in a way it's almost redundant to say that you're a white nationalist. We know that the word nation almost implicitly talks about ethnicity and biology. If you go back to the history of the word, a nation is not synonymous with country or state. Nation itself means a people. So I think if I call myself a nationalist, it's almost implicit in that word that it's, well, you know, America does have a heritage of being a European country. So that a little bit about the wording, because I know a lot of people would be confused by that, but that's really how I see myself.
Pro-white advocacy is often not who we are, it's what we became. We notice the double standards coming from the highest positions of power globally. We have a demographic, while small, hatted, has a religious text that commands everyone in the outgroup to be treated differently, with the biggest obstacle being Christianity. After enough time, you start to ask yourself, why did Lawrence Harvey Zeiger change his name to Larry King? And if black people have it so bad, why does his son want to be black?
My younger son, Cannon, he is 8. And he now says that he would like to be black. I'm not kidding. He wants, there's a lot of advantages to being black. Black is in. Is this a turning of the tide?
So let's end it here. Pat Buchanan was a career politician who had to maintain political relationships and later in his life realized the brazen political attack on white people. Nick Fuentes had the foresight to build himself up independently. He's been streaming since before it exploded. He knew that as long as he could build a loyal following, he wouldn't have to be restricted like a typical politician. To this very day, I speculate that he doesn't have a wife and kids because that's more things they could take away from him. His focus is on the crux of the main opponents of white collectivization. I'll play us out with a Kyle Kalinske video from 11 years ago. Have a good one.
We haven't talked about Pat Buchanan in a while, but then on Friday, he actually wrote an article where he argued that segregation was a good thing. So let's listen and then we'll discuss.
Do you think college admissions should be based on diversity?
Yeah, I mean, I think lots of factors go into diversity, and I think race can be one of them, and I think the Supreme Court so far agrees with that.
You're in the minority. Only 28% in favor.
It should be based on excellence,
John. As long as the Supreme Court agrees with me,
just like the
fine.
NFL. Whoever's the best player plays, and whoever does best academically should be advanced. What is wrong with that?
Here's the question I have. One of the things I always say, because I think you can measure diversity in a lot of ways, but I think there's an argument to be said that the greatest affirmative action program that there is in the country is being born white. There is a natural assumption when you're applying to institutions of higher education that you are excellent or you are more superb or more brilliant than others.
Are the only group you can discriminate against legally in America now.
The only group you can discriminate against is white people.
Very good, Kyle. Maybe we can cover shapes and colors next week.
Do I even need to say anything?
No, we know your wife pegs you.